Welcome to the Our Work Matters podcast of the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council. If you are an individual with an intellectual or developmental disability, their family member or caregiver in Florida, this podcast is the place for you. The FDDC's purpose is to promote policies and best practices for the IDD community through education, advocacy, and partnerships. In this podcast, we'll be sharing ways you can get involved by highlighting our partner projects, legislative platforms, and advocacy opportunities. So come learn more and join our community. Hi, I'm Chris Reeve, and I'm your host. And today I am here talking to Dr. Torica Exuma and Dennis Debbaudt. And I am very excited to learn more about their project in which the FDDC has partnered with the Florida Atlantic University to develop a training curriculum for first responders. The training is focused on how to effectively handle situations involving individuals with developmental disabilities. And I'm really excited to learn more about it. Torica, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be involved with this project.
Sure, no problem, Chris. And thank you for having Dennis and I today on this call. My name is Dr. Torica Exuma. Once again, I am a clinical researcher here at FAU CARD. At FAU CARD, I had a number of projects with FDDC, and I'm happy to be co-leading this one for training first responders. My background is in applied behavior analysis, and I'm also the vice president of the CEC chapter here in Florida for DEBH. And I am a professor here at FAU teaching many students applied behavior analysis and, of course, advancing information on safety. So, Dennis, I'll hand it down to you.
Sure. My name is Dennis Debbaudt. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I am the proud parent of a 41-year-old man who is autistic. And he was born in 1983, and we first heard the words surrounding his autism that he might have it when he was about 2. But we got the formal diagnosis about a year and a half later, and have had lived experiences interacting with the police suddenly and not being prepared for it. The police weren't prepared for it. I, over 37 years, operated a detective agency in Detroit and then down here in Florida. So that put me in contact with law enforcement, and it also made me believe that material was available for the police about autism and other related disabilities. And I found out in the late 80s that was not true. It was not being addressed by law enforcement. And that came at a time where autism was starting to become more the prevalence rate was growing. Even back in the 80s, it was growing rapidly, and nothing like the 21st century. But I've been filling that need with my research and reporting since the early 1990s. So I'm really happy to be here and share some of the things I've learned.
We're happy to have you as well. You are definitely a pioneer in this field. And so I'm new to FDDC, so I was very pleased to see that they had started this partnership about the first responder training, because I think it is such a huge need, and it's so vast that it's going to take a village
Yes.
to really make a big difference. But I think that this is a really good step in that direction. So, Torica, can you tell us a little bit about the first responder training that you've developed for this project? Just a brief overview of what it consists of and what it is.
No problem. So the first responder trainer developed in this project provides a comprehensive education for emergency personnel to effectively interact with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, so IDD, who may have co-occurring mental health challenges. So throughout the various resources we have, our participants will gain insight into recognizing, understanding, and responding considerately to the unique needs of individuals with IDD. There's going to be an overall goal here, which will be to enhance communication, reduce any potential misunderstandings, and improve overall outcomes during emergency situations. And as we know, there's a wide range of emergency situations. Well, during these trainings, the various training sessions that we'll have, we'll address the different type of emergency situations that law enforcement officers or emergency medical specialists may encounter with individuals with IDD. And we'll go over some examples, some different various techniques that they can use, such as crisis de-escalation, effective communication, understanding different triggers, understanding the different symptoms or characteristics of those with IDD, as well as understanding how to interact with family and caregivers during that problem or that emergency situation. So there's a lot going into this, as you can see. It's a very long, thorough, comprehensive curriculum that we developed. And like you said, it does take a village. So we have what I call our all-star team, but we have an advisory committee with us with 18 members at this time. Of course, we have Dennis on board. We have Dr. Ken Spence from UCF. We have Jack Scott, our executive director here at FAU CARD, and we have many other national experts on our committee. So everyone's given us some sort of feedback, advice, or guidance to enhance our training program, and we're trying to do the very best we can for all first responders throughout the state.
It's incredible. And it really does take a lot of people. One of the things I like about the way our project partners go through this is that they bring in those experts and really get that feedback, so that as they go through the process, it really becomes something that's applicable in the real world. Dennis, can you tell us a little bit why training for first responders is so important? I think it's something that those of us in the DD field definitely understand, but families and other people that aren't necessarily part of the autism, developmental disability world don't always know. So particularly that training on recognizing signs of distress or escalation. Give us a little bit of background on that.
Yeah, over the years, and my reporting reflected this 30 years ago, and it still exists today. Folks who have ASD, any form of developmental disability, intellectual disability, in many cases, not always, but in many cases, you can't look at them and know that they have it. So disclosure becomes a challenge as well as a solution for law enforcement. The more our families understand that it would be good for law enforcement when they have an interaction, or if they have one with your child, or you, if you're advocating for yourself, or the people you care about, that they really do need to know that you need some accommodations that would be perhaps not the first thought on their mind without the disclosure. So disclosure has become a key aspect of the training. We can share advice and do about the time spent. These contacts typically take longer, so being willing to invest the time when it's safe to do so, to give people more personal space than you would expect. And these days after COVID, we like at least 7 or 8 feet of personal space. Before COVID, it was 4 or 5. I would say here, when it's safe to do so, again, 10 or 15 feet is not a bad idea. If you know that person has one of these conditions. So these are examples, and it's also very important, with or without disclosure, for the law enforcement professional to do a survey, if you will, of the sensory climate that they're in with any individual, but especially an individual with brain-based or sensory or communications difficulties. So what do you hear? What do you see? What are the odors? What's the situation? Is there traffic that you cannot control? Are there places of risk nearby, water or places of great height that people could go to? These are all things that, along with your interactions, that you would want to make a mental note of. So that's an example of what, a section of the training curriculum that would apply to police, fire rescue, paramedics, folks at a hospital emergency room, really even passersby. This information could be very useful. So that gives you a hint of what's going on and why we're doing it.
And I really love the focus on disclosure, because I think that is something that's very hard, and recognizing that sometimes the individual may be the person who needs to know to disclose about themselves. So I'm really, really glad that you included that. That's a really important thing. Torica, obviously we don't have time on this episode to cover all the elements of the training itself. But can you share how first responders can best approach individuals with developmental disabilities when they get a call? What are some elements, in addition to those that Dennis just talked about, that can help, that they should be aware of?
Well, you're right. We definitely do not have enough time on this episode to cover all of that. Well, when first responders approach individuals with IDD, you want to start off with a very sensitive and informed approach. We know that's essential, like Dennis said a little bit earlier, and we want to ensure a positive and safe interaction. So let's begin there. You always want to take a moment to observe, see what's going on, look out for any cues that may indicate that this individual has a developmental disability, look out for any unusual behaviors, communication devices, or if there's a caregiver or parent or therapist nearby. Always approach that individual calmly and slowly. You want to avoid any sudden movements, loud commands, rapid actions. Once again, this is information and techniques that we cover in our training. Communication techniques, there's many, but you always want to think of using simple and clear language. Allow time for processing, extra time for processing, which we have a practice scenario in our training for that. You always want to be aware, once again, of body language, the individual's body language, but also your body language, and be aware of your tone as well. Recognizing any sensory sensitivity. So once again, sirens, flashing lights, shouting, whatever's going on in that environment, be aware these may be triggers. It may cause some sort of negative reaction by that other individual. So always be aware of what's going on. I think the biggest one will be responding to challenging behaviors. What do you do at this point? How can we reduce or de-escalate the situation? So always stay patient and try your very best and use our techniques to avoid escalating the situation. And then, you want to take a step back if you have to, assess calmly and try again as much as needed. This is information that we cover in our training once again. And Dennis, you probably have something to add in here about responding to challenging behaviors.
Again, the principle: invest time, give space, vary your own communication, and then rinse and repeat. It's a repetitive cycle. These are areas that you can go into. Situations are fluid. They can change quickly. But again, based on disclosure, but also a reasonable belief after a few minutes that you've spent with an individual, no matter who they are, you're starting to learn things about them, their voice, what they're capable of doing, physically in their communications. And these can also give you an opportunity to assess and make your own discovery that this person might have a disability. No one's asking you to prove it in court, or do we need a doctor to come in and bless it with their diagnosis or anything else. No, a working understanding that this might be these conditions that you learned about in training can be your cue to start kicking in the advice and the tips that we offer in communication and awareness and spacing. And so each look at the environment is going to change as you go. So looking at someone's body language, nearby sources of sensory output, and whether or not they're keen to get a little bit closer, or some people are a little bit is overwhelming. These would be a couple of examples of body language that you may observe in many people with ID, ASD, and DDs. Not everybody, but many people. And keep that concept fresh in the mind of law enforcement. This is not a cookie. If it were a cookie cutter training where everybody responded in the same way, we could probably do a training in 20 minutes and be done with it. But it's just not that. I wish it were that simple, but it's not. There's a lot of variances. I would also say, along with disclosure, it would be also a good ballpark estimation of where that person is on the independence scale. How is that person capable, or would you expect them to be able to cross the street safely 100% of the time? Because 98% doesn't get it. A mistake is looming for that person. So, but there are other judgments in making financial transactions, traveling on public transportation, and others that would give you a sense that this person is, if they're younger, will probably get the skill set to be able to manage going out in the community alone, or you may know by age 5, 6, 7, or 8 that this is a person that probably will need an appropriate adult with them throughout the rest of their life.
Correct.
So, as advocates and parents and people, along with disclosure, if that's part of it, that would be very useful for law enforcement to know where they can start going a little bit deeper. If they're saying, this person is more independent, they've been independent for years and they're in their 30s or something, and they're in an area where nobody knows them and now police are interacting, that would be a super advantage to know that. So you don't want to approach at too simple of a level, but there are times for people who are less independent where that is most appropriate. So these kinds of judgments that are reasonably simple to make, you're going to make them anyway. It's best to bring them out and formalize it a bit in the training. That's a good thing. Encourage people to do that. And it's okay to make a mistake. But again, getting a working knowledge. The deal here is law enforcement, especially, their goal is to make sure nobody gets hurt, especially them. And reunite that person with their family. Custody, typically, of autistic children, teens, and adults, depending on the circumstances, but typically it's going to be minutes. It's not going to be hours or days or anything like that. There are accommodations for that, and when this population now is interacting with the juvenile or criminal justice system, there's additional advice that we offer in the training.
But as you can see, Chris, simple information from caregivers, therapists, or even the Persons with Disabilities Registry, any information like that can change the dynamic of the interaction significantly. So we need to have this information easily available right away so we can see about getting this person home safe or taking the next steps closely monitored and safely.
Yeah, exactly, Torica. If you know you're going to have to take this person into custody because they're a witness to a crime, or they would not be safe if you let them walk away, you're going to have to provide reasonable custody, even if someone needed to be locked up, if they're a potential suspect. When you don't know, you may have to take people and put them in custody. You want to segregate that person from the rest of the population in a county jail or any secured facility. And so again, that's part of the advice. So we cover a lot of ground when we get into the training room, but there are three field contacts that are usually managed by people in uniform who are on patrol that I first wrote about in the 90s. And those three types of contacts still are relevant today. The difference today is we know so much more, and the population that of people with intellectual disability and developmental disabilities has grown so rapidly in the 21st century that it's stressing the system. So this training ultimately, and now in parts of Florida and America, it's being embedded into mandatory training for law enforcement and people that work in the criminal justice profession. So we're on to something here.
Well, and that was exactly my next question, which was, how does this training get to the people who need it? And how is it structured? Is it they come for a day-long workshop? Is it part of a college curriculum? Tell us a little bit about that.
I can say that it comes in, it could come in a briefing where you use a card, and it's right before the shift change, and the training officer that we have trained is delivering a 5-minute briefing about autism, just to keep it fresh in the mind of the patrol folks, as well as 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour blocks, all day sessions. It's a part of the project to train, identify, recruit, and then train people who work in these professions that we are training, but who also have a life, of lived experience with someone who's autistic. Parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, friends, neighbors, the classmates now. We're recruiting folks. We have a much richer opportunity to recruit folks who have the dual experience of providing safety for the entire community, as well as interacting with and loving and just living with someone who's autistic in a variety of ways. So that is really good news. We're going out of our way to identify these folks and recruit them, and we'll continue to do that. But I'll turn it over to you, Torica.
Yeah, so the good news is that our training is always being updated. So we're adding in new material every single year, sometimes even a little bit sooner, depending on the different situations going on or happening throughout Florida. Right now, it is a half training. It's a 4-hour training just for one day. It could either be for an officer just sworn in, or an officer that's been sworn in for a decade already, looking for a refresher course. We're hoping for those with lived experiences to speak up, to tell us about what happened in the past so we can learn from that and advance forward, take the next correct step forward into assisting individuals in a similar situation. Really, the overall goal for this is to have this not as a mandatory training, but as the standard training throughout the state. But we also want to see this happening in the school system, higher education, college students. We want to see this embedded into some sort of freshman or sophomore course just for 1 week, so they can get an idea as to what we're doing in this special needs community, and also in law enforcement, so they could be prepared when they're sworn in. So as you can see, a lot's going into this. We have many steps to take forward to bring this program throughout the state and really make it this standardized training to continue pushing forward.
Yeah, I know it's a huge project. I know that at least shortly before we were recording this, you guys were piloting the training. Do you have a target date for when it might be more widely available for first responders?
So we're aiming for a wider rollout of the training, probably around mid-2025. So the timeline will allow for us to obviously refine the curriculum based on any feedback from our participants during the pilot training. And we want to ensure that the materials are well aligned with what first responders need across the state of Florida and to help various populations. It's going to take us some time to finalize this, but we're taking our time doing so because we want to create the best curriculum possible at this time. And once we have it, we have it. This is it. This is what we're going to use. We know that it works. It's backed up by data and years of development. So we just want to make sure we're providing the best product possible.
And we will make sure that when it is ready and when it is more available, we will make sure it goes on our website. There's a notification and we'll go out in a newsletter as well. So we will be all about sharing that news. What other resources are available to families and to first responders to help make emergency situations more effective and safer? And we can share links to these in the show notes as well so people can access them easily.
I'll identify let me say that again. I'll identify the three contacts that have been a part of my early research that are still relevant today. And one is the suspicious person contact, suspicious activity. Left without a disclosure, some folks with autism or their care providers, if they're children, may be seen as by others, bystanders, neighbors alike, as very suspicious. Enough so that they call 911, and that then puts law enforcement with proximity and contact with autistic people. And they may probably not know that. That's one. A second one would be the crisis emergency. And you see, and everybody's probably heard of the SWAT team concept, which came out in the mid to late 60s. And that in large part was based on contacts with people with mental illness that law enforcement had then and are still having now. And so part of our training, a good part of it, is to add knowledge about developmental disabilities and autism and other conditions of the brain to further educate responders now who are answering on phones at 988 and 211. They are now in mobile response units that are becoming rapidly a part of American public safety. So working hand in hand with law enforcement. But the primary one, the one that takes the most lives and is really crushing for the autism community and society around America, is the less independent children and teens and adults who break away from care in a variety of ways and find themselves in dangerous situations, especially with water. Yes. Water is drowning is a leading cause of death for autistic people. But with the population growing so rapidly, swim safety and water safety and disclosure and securing your home, these are all issues that not only didn't go away over the last 25 years, it's gotten much more prevalent. And I'm not going to call it a public safety emergency, but in the area of accommodations for persons with disabilities, and you could certainly add in Alzheimer's dementia, it's at a rate where we're close to emergency on this. Almost no day goes by without a report of one of these incidents, too many of them fatal.
Yeah.
Those are the three contexts that this training aims to inform.
Yeah. And I think for the water safety piece is so important for families, for individuals who are in Florida. I think that's hardly a week goes by where we don't see something on the news about that. I live in a town named Lakeland, so you can imagine how much water we have. South Florida is the same way. So, and I know that we have some links that we can share in the show notes for water safety, drowning prevention, and we'll definitely make sure to share those. They go out on our Facebook page regularly as well. Thank you both for coming in to talk to us today. This training is so incredibly needed in our field. And if our listeners are looking for more information about this training and other projects, they can head over to our website at fddc.org. And I hope that we will see you again next time.
Thank you, Chris. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah.